Snow White ran frantically through the night, the trees howling past her, branches clawing at her dress like ghostly fingers. The wind carried guttural growls, and when she turned her head, a terrifying sight met her eyes. Hollow stares from the depths of the dark forest, drooling mouths filled with rotting teeth and decomposing bodies lurching toward her. Her heart pounded wildly as she stumbled through the fallen leaves. Suddenly she tripped and fell hard to the ground. Desperate to rise, she felt an icy grip wrap around her ankle. Before she could scream, a foul-smelling mouth clamped onto her arm. Agonizing pain shot through her as she yanked herself free, crimson staining her pale skin. She forced herself to her feet, suppressing the burning sensation in her wound, and ran until she burst through the doors of the familiar cottage. The 7 dwarfs surrounded her in shock, their eyes wide with concern. "What happened?" Bashful asked nervously. "Zombies," Snow White gasped, her body trembling. Her complexion grew paler, her breathing uneven. The dwarfs anxiously cleaned her wound, but the bite mark had already turned an ominous shade of black and purple, spreading like poison through her veins. "We need a cure," Doc shouted urgently, but it was too late. Snow White's body began convulsing, her pupils dilating as black liquid seeped from her lips. Her nails elongated, her skin turned deathly cold, and her lips cracked open, revealing sharp teeth. "Snow White?" Dopey reached out hesitantly. Instant, she let out a guttural snarl and lunged at them, her movements jerky and unnatural. The dwarfs recoiled in terror, and just as Dopey was about to be bitten, Grumpy shoved her back. She crashed against the wall, letting out an inhuman shriek. "She's not the princess anymore," Sneezy whispered, tears welling in his eyes. "But we can't hurt her," Bashful protested, voice shaking. "We have to save her. The prince, his kiss can break curses. He must be able to save her," Doc insisted. Determined, the dwarfs locked Snow White in a room, barricading the windows and doors to prevent her from harming herself or anyone else. She growled and thrashed inside, her mind lost to the hunger. The dwarfs sat outside, listening to her eerie wails, their hearts shattered. They sent Speedy to find the prince, but in a world overrun by zombies, was the prince still alive? Days turned into weeks, and Snow White's condition worsened. She was no longer herself. Her nails had become claws, her irises had turned pitch black, and only a bloodthirsty instinct remained. The dwarfs never left her side, waiting, hoping. Finally, on a moonless night, the sound of hooves echoed outside. The 7 dwarfs rushed out to find the prince clad in silver armor, his expression grim yet determined. "Where is she?" he asked. She's already turned," Doc choked out. The prince clenched his fists but nodded. Without hesitation, he approached the barricaded room. "Are you sure? Your kiss can save her?" Dopey asked fearfully. "No, but I have to try," the prince declared. Holding their breath, the dwarfs watched as he pushed the door open. The room reeked of decay. Snow White was hunched in the corner, her red eyes glinting in the darkness. "Snow White," the prince called softly. She snapped her head toward him and lunged. The prince didn't move. He caught her in his arms, and just as her mouth neared his throat, he pressed his lips against hers. Time seemed to freeze. Snow White convulsed violently, clutching his shoulders. The red glow in her eyes faded, her claws receded, and her skin regained its warmth. Slowly she opened her teary eyes, dazed and weak. "Prince," she murmured hoarsely. "It's me. I'm here," he whispered gently, cupping her face. Outside, the dwarfs erupted into cheers. Their patience had finally been rewarded with a miracle. Snow White was saved. The curse was broken, and in the depths of despair, love had triumphed once more.